I never thought a routine visit to my mother-in-law's house could shatter my world, but that day changed everything. It started like any other Sunday. My wife had suggested we drop by for lunch. She said her mother had made my son's favorite meal. I didn't think twice. Our little boy, only 6 years old, was excited about pancakes, fruit, and spending time with Grandma. The moment we arrived, something felt off. The house was unusually quiet, too quiet for a family that usually buzzed with noise. I waved at my mother-in-law, who greeted us with her usual smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. My wife was distracted on her phone, scrolling and typing, barely acknowledging our arrival. I called out to my son to come to the living room, expecting him to run into my arms like he always did. Instead, I froze. There he was. My little boy, sitting on the floor, eyes wide and terrified, chained, literally chained, to the leg of the coffee table. The sight hit me like a punch to the gut. Panic surged through me. My son looked up, confusion and fear swimming in his eyes. "Daddy, why?" he stammered. I whipped around to my wife, expecting an explanation, an apology, anything. She glanced up, eyes wide, not in shock, but in that chilling calmness that now made my blood run cold. "It's just temporary," she said, her tone casual, like she was talking about a misplaced sock, not our child's safety. "He needs to learn boundaries." I felt my stomach twist. "Boundaries?" I asked, my voice trembling with rage. "You chained our son? How is this a lesson?" My mother-in-law interjected, a smirk barely hidden. "We're just making sure he behaves while you're busy working. Discipline is important." Her words dripped with condescension. I felt something inside me snap. I knelt beside my son, quickly unfastening the chain, holding him close as he trembled against me. I whispered reassurances, fighting to keep my own tears at bay. The betrayal cut deeper than any fight my wife and I had ever had. The woman I had trusted with my son had crossed a line I didn't think anyone could cross. "Why?" I demanded, turning to my wife. "Why would you do this? To him? To us?" She shrugged, like my anger was inconvenient background noise. "He needs to understand consequences. He's been difficult." Her eyes flicked to my mother-in-law, who nodded in agreement. The reality was horrifying. They had been conspiring, justifying cruelty as discipline. I left the living room carrying my son in my arms, ignoring their protests. I could feel my heart pounding, a mix of fury and disbelief. I didn't speak. I didn't negotiate. I just left. Outside, I breathed in the fresh air, letting my son cling to me. "I'm here, buddy. I've got you," I whispered. That night, I couldn't sleep. Anger churned inside me, but so did fear. Fear that if I didn't act carefully, I could lose him to more of their toxic influence. I called my closest friend, someone I trusted implicitly. I told him what had happened. He listened quietly, then said, "You have to protect him. Document everything, and think carefully. Revenge isn't just about anger. It's about ensuring they can never harm him or you again." The next morning, I began my plan. Not reckless, not impulsive, but calculated. I collected every text, every message, every instance of manipulation, cruelty, and bizarre justification from my wife and her mother. I recorded conversations where they tried to rationalize the chains, the punishments, the way they treated our son. Every detail was preserved. Then I sought legal advice. I spoke with a family lawyer, presenting the evidence. "This isn't just emotional abuse," I said, holding back a shiver. "This is physical restraint of a child. They can't get away with this." The lawyer nodded gravely, explaining the steps to secure custody, restraining orders, and protective measures. I didn't tell my wife or her mother that I was taking action. They were unaware that their manipulations were being logged, that their cruelty would have consequences. I stayed calm, living my life as normal, while preparing for the moment when the truth would hit. Weeks passed. The court hearings were tense. My wife tried to argue that chaining was temporary and for discipline, while my mother-in-law tried to claim she had good intentions. But the evidence was undeniable. Messages, recordings, and my son's testimony, tender, scared, but honest, spoke louder than their lies. In the end, the ruling was clear. Full custody was awarded to me. My wife was given supervised visitation, and my mother-in-law was legally barred from any direct contact. I didn't seek revenge through humiliation or exposure. The law itself had done the work. Their abuse could no longer touch us. When I returned home with my son, free from their chains, both literal and metaphorical, I held him tightly. "You're safe now, buddy." "Always," I whispered. And I meant it. Over the next months, I rebuilt our life. Therapy sessions for my son helped him process fear, guilt, and confusion. I worked to restore his trust in adults, showing him love, patience, and stability. My wife tried to reach out sporadically, offering excuses, apologies, even pleading for another chance. I listened, but I didn't respond. My priorities had shifted. My son's safety and well-being were the only concern. Through this ordeal, I learned a harsh truth. Betrayal can come from those closest to you, but strength comes from protecting what truly matters. My son's trust, his safety, and his innocence were worth more than anger, more than confrontation. The best revenge, I realized, wasn't exposing them online or shaming them publicly. It was reclaiming control, protecting the vulnerable, and thriving despite their cruelty. Years later, my son is happy, confident, and free from the shadows of that day. Sometimes he asks about his grandmother, about his mother's behavior, and I answer honestly, but carefully. He knows he's safe, he knows he's loved, and he knows that no one, not even the people who should have protected him, can take that away. As for my wife and her mother, they exist on the periphery of our lives now. Their attempts at influence, manipulation, or contact are neutralized by boundaries, law, and vigilance. The chains that once bound my son physically no longer exist, nor do the chains that once held us emotionally hostage. I never shouted. I never lashed out. I simply acted, calmly and strategically, using evidence, patience, and foresight. And in doing so, I ensured that the people who betrayed us had no power left to harm, intimidate, or manipulate. That day at my mother-in-law's house could have been the end of my son's innocence. It could have been the beginning of a nightmare. But instead, it became the moment I learned that courage isn't about confrontation. It's about preparation, protection, and decisive action. And when I tuck my son into bed at night, his laughter echoing through the house, I know the chains are gone forever. The betrayal remains in memory, but it no longer defines us. We are free. Because sometimes the strongest revenge isn't punishment, it's survival and the quiet triumph of reclaiming what is yours.